Jingle bell neck.
And we're live.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to week 5 of Cindy B's Sew Along 2023. Before we get into sewing, I just want to say how much we enjoyed all the pictures everybody put up on our Facebook group. So we really enjoy seeing the different color combinations and excited about how they're going to turn out as we go along. So if you haven't already, please join our Facebook group. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Speaking of YouTube, if you've got your grandkids at home or your kids at home for March break, I have a couple cool projects up on the YouTube channel that are great, nice, fast, one day it's done and it's finished. There is the hot dog pillowcases, and there is also jar openers that are really cute, make wonderful presents for the kids to make for their grandmas and grandpas or their mummies and aunties. Cute, easy projects. So check them out while you're on the YouTube channel. So today when we sew, we now have, or today I'm going to use something different. I have 160-year anniversary Quilt Ambition 635 machine here from Pfaff. And I just wanted to use that today just because my sister says she needs one because it's a pretty pink. But I have to show you the semi-automatic threading. I have it in an angle. Hopefully you can see it. See, on the side, there's this little dial, and that's how we're going to use to thread the machine. Just like any machine, I want to make sure my needle is in the proper position. So I'm going to push the needle down button. I'm going to push it so it's up. Now I know my needle is perfectly lined up for the threader. I've threaded it the regular way and put it through the guide. Hold on, I'm going to zoom in. I have a helper today. Let's get an action shot. Ready? Okay, so it goes through the guide there, back through this lever here, and through the cutter. So then all I have to do is thread, cut. Whoops, I missed. And it's threaded. As easy as that. Pretty cool.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, pretty cool for our old eyes. Alrighty, thank you, Nugget, for helping me. Okay, so now let's get to sewing. So this week we are making the squared units. So I downloaded again my cutting instructions. I made sure I got my week 1 color chart out, so I knew exactly which fabrics that I am cutting. I needed to cut my C, which to me is the light blue, and my F, which is my golden color. My iron was telling me it went off. So I've got the cutting done for this. And the tools that we need this week, again, a rotary cutter, a purple thing, hopefully not our seam ripper. We might be using our seam-align glue. We might not. And then you either need a square, or what I am going to use is our squared ruler by Deb Tucker, Studio 180 Designs. It's got some really cool features on it that I absolutely love. Alrighty, so let's get started. So here I have my fabric C, which are my squares. And I left them cut just in squares because if I cut things into diagonals, that can stretch a little bit. So I always cut those at the very last minute. So I can either use any ruler that has a straight edge, and I'm going to cut from corner to corner. I think I have about 3 or 4 of them piled up here. So there we have our triangles. And that's what we're going to need to sew the corners onto our block. These corners are oversized, so we get to square them up, which is always great in my world. Alrighty, so here's our strip. Now on the instructions, we had written down that we were going to cut a 3.5-inch strip, and we're going to cut it down. If you don't have the square ruler, these F units, these triangles have to be cut at 3 3/8. So if you are using a regular ruler, you have to sit and figure out exactly where the 3/8 is. So each one of those little lines is an 8. So we have to count 1, 2, 3. So it's one line smaller than a half. Thank you, Tiffany. So I can do it with this. I am going to align up my 3/8. I've got this weird funky part. That's where I cut off for my my chart. So I'm just going to trim, and I'm going to trim this side, and then I can flip it around, and I can use the 3/8 mark. 3/8. These creative grid rulers do have this cute little chicken foot, I call them, the little guide for the corner to keep me straight. I just find it's so much easier to cut a 3.5-inch square and then square it down and get a little bit more accuracy when I'm doing the 3/8-inch cuts. But Deb, this ruler here, we don't really have to know that it's a 3 3/8-inch cut when we're cutting with this, because we are going to use this diagram right here. It says center square for a 4-inch block. It also has on there a dotted line that's giving you your 1/4-inch seam allowance. That is really cool. I should have had some other fabric here. If you are trying to fussy cut something, so you could actually, if there was a special flower or something on your piece, you can fussy cut them. Oh, I think I have, do I have my other block in here? Let me see. I'll be back. Yeah. So when I was doing some of our samples we were playing with the fall colors, I wanted to actually highlight a leaf. So I made sure that when I centered it, the piece that I wanted to cut within that dotted line and then cut on the solid line. Remember though that this block is going to be on point. So if it was an animal or something that you wanted it straight, make sure that you're cutting it at the diagonal. Clear as mud? All righty. So all I have to do with this is, now that I have a nice straight edge there.
Oh. Sorry, it just occurred to me it's set on point in the quilt and it's set on point in the block. So it actually needs to be straight in the block to be straight in the quilt, even though it's on point in the block.
What?
Because if the block is straight, it's on point in the block.
But
then the block is going to be on point in the quilt, so it becomes square again.
Okay, so in this case, we would have to be cutting them so they would look like they were crooked, like they were on a diagonal.
No, they were.
But like when we're putting them on the straight. But then once it's in the quilt, it would be straight again. So good point, Tiffany.
Yeah. It'll look crooked in your unit, but it'll be straight again in the quilt.
Exactly. That's in case you want to have something that's actually a direction. Mine doesn't have a direction. I really don't care. So all I have to do is find my solid line that says center square for a 4-inch finished block. I'm going to line that up on the edge. Here and here. I am going to cut up and cut down. So as simple as that, we are going to cut our squares. And I need 6 squares. That's 3. Again, same as any other block. If it starts going crooked, don't fuss. Just move it over and square up the other side. That just happens because we're moving things around. 1, 2, 3, 4. I am going to do 5. Is there any questions today? Did anybody find us?
We do have 20 people watching.
Hi.
No one has said hello today yet, though. I was just going to mention that we should mention that we have sprayed this ruler down with Grippy.
We did. I don't think that you can actually see it.
Well, you can see that it's a little bit foggy.
It's a little bit foggy. Okay, so these rulers are very slippery. They don't have any grippy on the back at all. So there's two things that you can use. You could either use Invisigrip, which is self-adhesive, just plasticky kind of stuff that helps it slip. But I found this new project out, and I don't have any here today. It's in a little spray can. It's called Grippy. When I first thought about it, I thought, oh, I don't know if I want sticky on the back of my ruler because things are going to stick to it, all your threads and everything. I thought, what the heck, let's try it. So I got a can in. I sprayed my rulers. You can hear that it's just a little rough. It's not sticky whatsoever. So I sprayed the back of the ruler, and it sticks really, really well. Or not that it sticks, it just doesn't slide. I think I need one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And
so
I believe that's by Odif?
It is an Odif product. Yes, exactly. It's called Grippy. Great for when you're free motion quilting with rulers. You can spray the back of those rulers too. They give us just that stuff that doesn't slide. It makes it so much wonderful. Now we also need 2 3-inch squares for something else over in the quilt later on. So you can see in our instructions that we are going to also cut. It says 0 strips here for the lap size because I have some leftover unit and I can just square it down into 3-inch squares. So all I need is 2 squares at 3 inches
for the lap size.
For the lap size. So I am going to find my square ruler that I lost. There it is. I buried it when I went and got that other block. And I want to cut these down to 3. So instead of cutting my whole strip down, I am just going to cut 1, cut 2.
We have a bunch of hellos now, including one from California.
Well, hello there.
Oh, and one from Ohio.
Are you getting all that rain in California? I hope you're not in an area that's having all the flooding. I'm going to take these 2 3-inch blocks and I am going to label them and I'm going to put them away for a later step because I do not want these right now. And I know if I leave them on my board, I am going to pick them up and sew them in with my corners by accident. So I'm going to put this in my bin just for another block later on.
Careful, there's a cat using your chair as a jungle gym.
Okay. So let's go. Let's start sewing. So I have my machine turned on. It started at 2.5 like every machine. I want to move it down to a 2.0. I have on my 1/4-inch foot. And I also tested my seams because it's not my normal machine that I use. So off camera, I tested my seam allowance again and made sure that my measurements, and if you forget about this, again, do it. So it's 3 1.5-inch pieces. Now this middle piece measures 1 inch. The whole unit measures 3.5, and I know I'm good to go.
We have a whole video on that.
All righty. So let's start sewing. So what I want to do is I am going to take my squares and you can see how much these hang over. So we're good to go. So this is what I want to do. So I'm going to sew 2 sides on. We're going to test opposite sides and then we're going to sew the other 2 sides. All righty. So if I take my triangle and lay it down, I'm going to take my yellow fabric or my accent fabric, my fabric F, and lie it on side. I don't have to be so particular to make sure that it's exactly lined up in the center because I do have fudge room, but I want about the same amount of corners hanging off on both sides. I can glue this. I can put a pin in it to help me out, whatever you like to do. Now, when I go to my sewing machine, with this unit, we're going to want to automatically put it this way, but that's a no-no. These blocks, because they're totally enclosed in what we're sewing, are cut to the exact right size. So I want to make sure that I see this side so I can follow the yellow for my perfect 1/4 inch seam. The blue, the triangle on the other side, my C fabric, it's oversized. So if it shifts a little bit one way or the other, I have that fudge room that I don't care. I'm going to have lots of room to square it up. Whoop, presser foot down. This one doesn't have an automatic presser foot. So I'm going to sew. So I'm going to sew 1. And again, what I'm doing is I'm going to sew 1 block and I'm going to test myself. Then once it's good and I know everything's perfect, I am going to continue on, and then I could chain piece. I could chain piece one after the other. But I do want to test my block and make sure that it is aligned up perfectly. All right, so there we go. So our corners are about the same. I want to I lost my foot pedal there for a second. And we're going to cut. And now we're going to give this unit a little press. I want to press towards the triangles. So there's 1. I can also make sure that I press it open. I don't want to stretch that. That is a bias. And I'm going to grab my ruler and I am just going to check this center. If we were going to use the regular square, this again, because this is the 3/8 inch measurement, it's some odd number. This ruler is already set up to whatever that odd number is. So I can check out using this dotted line. So you can see right here, 4 is my center unit. And you will see more after I get the other corners on, that it'll work fine. What I want to do right now is just visually test my inside square. And I can see that my 2 dotted lines for the 4 are running on both of my seams. I'm good to go. I'm perfect, or perfect-ish. And so now I can sew my other 2 corners on. I can sew on like this and leave those dog ears, but I kind of like to trim them off. It's not a step that you have to do, but I do like it. It just, in my world, it just feels a little bit neater.
So you're not using any lines on the ruler at this point?
I'm not using any lines on the ruler. I could use any ruler that I have, even if I had, you know, that little tiny 6.5. I think I have one here. I could even use that one. I'm just lining it up on the edge of my yellow square. I do not want to cut my yellow fabric whatsoever. I just want to trim off those little corners. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be done, but it's also getting rid of all those yucky loose threads, those long threads that I had.
And a little bit of bulk in your seams.
And a little bit of bulk in my seams. Again, my blue goes right side up. My square is going up top. There's not quite as much corner hanging out there now, but there is a little bit, and it's kind of about the same size. Again, I want to sew with my center block to the top. I do like to have leaders in here. I don't have one today, but we'll live dangerously. Take that pin out. straighten out my corner. Oh, thank you, Tiffany. I could just put my leader in there. That's going to hold my edge. Again, you can see me look on both sides. Because it's batik, there's not very much difference. If I got one piece upside down in my quilt, nobody would ever notice. But in my light with my, in real time right here, I can see that this side is a little brighter. So I have decided that's my right side. So I'm putting that up. This one goes wrong sides, or right sides together, goes wrong side up. And if you wanted to, you could actually glue this side, glue this seam. And let's go. Oops. My other machine has the automatic foot lever. It just goes up automatically, so I forget with this one. Good practice using a new machine. It's so, so nice. The stitches are perfect. Again, we want to press, so we're going to press our seam to set our seam. I'm going to open this up with my fingers. I'm going to open this one up with my fingers. And there we have a block that is way oversized.
Just what you might want to mention with this block, pressing instead of ironing.
Exactly. Because this is a bias, if I started pressing it, I could catch the edge of my iron on a seam and it would really distort it. And then once I put heat on it, it would set it into place. So we really want to make sure that I press my seam to set it. I open it so I know that it's open all the way with my fingers, and then I just press.
Basically downward pressure and not sideways.
Okay, so there's our block, and now we have to square it up. I am going to show you the squared ruler because I do love it the best. So now on the ruler, you can see that there's this solid line that says 4.5 because a 4-inch finished block is squared up to 4.5. But we also have this center square that says 4 inches. So what I want to do is I am going to take where there's a 4. I want to, in a perfect world, they will line up exactly perfectly on our corner. This one is very, very close, and it must be because I'm trying extra hard on the camera. On occasion, even for me, they don't quite line up perfectly. If it's just out a little smidge, just center your mark the best that you can. But when I see that this corner is there, I am ensuring that there's going to be a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the sides, that I don't lose my points of my inside square.
Hopefully it's not too much to have to unpick.
Yeah. I'm going to cut this side. So now these two sides are perfect. So my upper right corner, I'm going to turn into the bottom left. Now I'm going to use the solid 4.5 inch line, align it up on the edge of my block. And if I have the right lines, my 4s will all automatically be in that corner. I can cut these other 2 sides. So there I have a perfect squared unit. I have a 1/4 inch from each post. So when I sew it into my block, it is not going to
Lose your points.
We're not going to lose our points. Let's quickly sew one more, and I can show you how to square it up if you don't have this ruler. So we can still cut the oversized pieces. Okay. Again, same thing. We're going to let our corners hang out equally on either side. I like my needle in the down position. So one side. So a second. I am going to press these out. Again, setting my seam. Any questions? Good time to ask questions. I think we also did these last year, so it's a nice refresher.
I don't see any questions.
I'm just going to grab my square, and I want to measure this one because I know this one was exactly right. So I see we're measuring 2 7/8. Let's see how close this one is. I find it really hard to use the edge of the ruler to measure 2 7/8. So what I like to do is I like to put the 1 on the edge of my square. And then here I guess it'll say 3 7/8, but I know it's 1, 2, and 7/8. And it looks like it's pretty close. So then we can grab 2 more triangles. One up.
Are you going to trim your corners?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I would have noticed that after I put them on my triangle. One. Nugget is mad at me. That's Tiff's cat because I left my cat at home today. So she's been wandering around since I got here, meowing for Misty. So I think that's why she's going to bug us even more. So maybe I will bring her next week. So I sewed that corner, and then I'm going to sew this corner. Again, sewing with my center square up so I can make sure that I can see exactly where I want my 1/4 inch seam to go. Here's a really, I don't know if you can see this. There's a really good example. My bottom shifted a little bit and it didn't line up quite properly. It's just a teeny tiny bit out, but the blue is over. Not a big deal because we have that extra fudge room built in. I know that this seam, I used my foot and made sure that it was measured to the edge of the yellow. So even if that was out a little bit, life is good. Your iron has steam on it, Tiffany. We do not want to be pressing with steam at this case. At this time, I don't want to set anything into my squares. All righty. So here's our block. And we're going to see how to square up with a regular ruler.
Do you want to put it this way a little bit?
Sure. Over here?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have to go up here, though, so it doesn't bump the leg of the stand. So I'm going to have my 1, 1 in my upper right-hand corner. If you're left, you would just put it in your upper left-hand corner. And on this Creative Grid ruler, my 1/4 inch line is marked. with a really nice dotted line. So that's what we're going to work with. We want to make sure that our 1/4 inch line is on both points, so I don't cut my points off. And we're squaring this up to 4.5. So 2.25 is our center mark. So the 2.25 inch mark should line up automatically with each point. So I've got the 1/4 inch line on the edge of my points of my center unit. My 2.25 is running through those points. I'm going to cut these two. I'm going to turn again my upper right into my bottom left. Now I want to square it up to 4.5. So my 4.5 inch unit, or sorry, my 4.5 inch lines will go on the edge of my block. Hopefully automatically I can see my two points that the 1/4 inch is just clearing my point. I don't want to lose those after trying so hard. And my 2.25 is lining up with the square corners. Just have to adjust that one just a smidgen. Cut. Roll back. Again, these rulers cost a lot of money, especially if you're using the larger cutter. I don't want to start cutting out here and start ticking the edge of my corner off. I always start out and I roll back and then I cut. We got to protect our rulers. I have no problem buying the rulers because, you know, there are power tools, but I do want to take care of them. So there we have it. There is our squared unit in 2 ways. I hope you had fun enjoying us. So for the lap quilt, we need 6. For the double, is it a double size? We need 12. And for the queen size, we need 16 squared units. So not as much work as last month or last 2 weeks ago. I think it was actually a great week for me to be gone last week because we got to catch up on those units that we had to do. So again, before I go, I really want to remind you to, if you haven't already, to join our Facebook page, to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Post your units. I'm excited to see what they're all starting to look like. It's so neat to see the different color variations, especially when we design a pattern, we design it with a color in mind. So I really love how people take it and make it their own, and it's fun for us to see. It's definitely fun for us to see. So if there's no other questions.
No, there's a little bit of fuzziness today, unfortunately, but I'm not sure. It might be the weather. It was snowing a bit.
It was snowing today, so.
Doesn't seem to be any questions.
All righty. So if there's nothing else.
And we will be here next week.
We are definitely here next week. I think we're going to start sewing some things together next week. So that's a little tip there. So don't spread it, right? So it'll be exciting to see exactly what's happening. Okay, so thank you very much. And we will see you next Monday. Happy sewing, everybody.